Well, the tank is empty and I'm still 2 miles from home, but I'm running on gasoline right now. But anyhow, that was the whole purpose of taking the trip and going to lunch, was to empty the battery. This car never gets completely empty. It always turns on the gasoline motor whenever it gets close to 10%. So there's always 10%, and 10% of 17 is like 2 something. So to fully charge this car from this level to full would take 15 kilowatt hours, and the battery that I got there is only good for 14.3, so I should run short. But the sun is still shining, so we'll see if I can charge this car from the battery and what solar's giving me without hitting the grid. It's now 10 minutes after 12. Here's the Emporia charger. They sell that at Signature Solar. I forget what the price was, but anyhow, I got mine from Amazon before Signature actually started carrying them. But I made a video about how to install this, and I'll post it later. EV charger, you can tell it which kind or what size breaker you have, and it'll throttle the power going out. So I just set it, and I heard the inverter spin up and supply more power, but it hasn't caught up with the display yet. And now it's pumping. It's actually doing better than I thought it would. It's pumping out 6,000 watts, and most of that is going into. I turned the lights out, so most of that's going into the car battery. I'm going to change the breaker size again and see if I can throttle that down. You can set the circuit breaker size of that you lie to your EV charger and tell it what size breaker you got. If you want to throttle it down, you can tell it it's got a 15 amp breaker in it, and it won't allow any more than like 10 amps to go to the car. So there, it has switched over, and now it's supplying most of that load to the charger is coming from the grid. It has its limitations, and if you want it to supply power to your EV strictly from solar and battery, then you're going to need to set your EV charger rating, tell it it's got a smaller breaker than it actually has, so that it won't pull so much power. If I set this down to say 20 amp breaker, I think all of the power would be coming from the battery and the solar. So I'm going to give that a try and see if that switches the grid off. Okay, I lied to it and told it only had the 20 amp breaker, and now the load is 3771, and it's throttled back to the point where it can handle it without using the grid. The grid is idle now. So in summary, the 6000 XP with a PowerPro battery can be used as an EV charger standalone. Okay, this is the last video of this project. I'm done, and overall I believe that the 6000 XP as an EV charger for a hybrid with a small capacity, like mine holds 15 kilowatt hours, so it worked fine for that. However, it did take a little over 3.5 hours to fully charge my EV from empty, because the 6000 can only put out 6,000 watts, and if you exceed that, it falls back to the grid, and it doesn't just kind of get grid assist, it switches to the grid. So whenever I exceeded the 6,000, all of the charging power came from the grid rather than the 6000 XP. So that's a drawback. But if you use the smarts that are in your EV charger, you can tell it how much power to use. And you do that by telling it how big a circuit breaker you got. I've got a 40 amp breaker on mine, and that's what I usually use whenever I charge my EV. But in order to not exceed the capabilities of the 6000 XP, I throttled that back and told it only had a 25 amp breaker. And that was the sweet spot. The 6000 XP was happy with that, and it went ahead and charged the car. My car was happy with that. So that's it for that. Myself, I would probably go for a larger inverter, just because I want to be able to charge it quickly. It took 3.5 hours to charge my car, and I guess that's not bad if that's the end of your day and you want to just park it and charge it and go in the house. But a lot of times on weekends, my wife and I want to charge and then go back out shopping and come back and then charge again. So that's kind of a drawback. But overall, I was happy with it, and I think a larger inverter and more panels may help if you've got a larger EV. But this one, cost-wise, with the new price changes, is going to be around between $8,000 and $10,000, depending on whether or not you can get free shipping or not. So I hope you enjoyed this and followed along. And if you've got questions, add them in, and I'll try to answer them.